Devon Taylor, Devon Taylor, Devon Taylor, Devon Taylor podcast. Devon Taylor, Devon Taylor, Devon Taylor.
Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Devon Taylor podcast, where we have guests from all around the world tell their unique and powerful stories to not only allow their voice to be heard, but for you to leave feeling inspired. Today's episode, we are diving into a topic that touches millions of families around the world, autism, but through a lens that's equal parts science, hopeful, and deeply human. My guest today is an international autism educator, Ivy League scientist, and autism parent. She's the founder and CEO of Navigating Autism, a groundbreaking platform that takes the overwhelming complexity of autism science and turns it into clear, actionable steps for families. With a PhD from Yale and firsthand experience raising a non-speaking autistic daughter, our next guest has worked with parents in over 21 countries, helping them find clarity, confidence, and progress in a world that often feels confusing and isolating. Today, we'll talk about the latest science around autism, what it really means when we say 37% of kids eventually lose their diagnosis, and how parents can move from fear to hope with the right information and support. This is a conversation about empowerment for parents, for children, and for anyone ready to rethink what's possible. So please welcome Dr. Theresa Lyons. Hello.
Hello, thank you very much. That was a
Thank
great
you.
intro. It
Oh,
is
awesome.
definitely a blend of science and hope for sure.
Yeah, and I'm really excited for you to be here and kind of tell us your story, your journey. I have a daughter that's autistic, so this really sits home for me, and I love to be a lot more prepared. And the ways that you've been able to prepare yourself. So I kind of want to just first start. You kind of built a global platform helping families navigate autism. Can you share what kind of led you to navigating autism?
It, Being involved in autism came out of my daughter and her diagnosis. So I have a PhD in computational chemistry from Yale. I was in the pharmaceutical industry doing drug discovery, and then I switched over more to the business side and understanding how do pharmaceutical companies generate the revenue by having doctors write prescriptions and do the research. So I had a 360-degree view of the healthcare industry. And then when my daughter was diagnosed with autism, I asked, okay, what now? What next? What do we do? And the answers were just, well, this just really kind of gets worse as it goes along, and there's not really too much to do. You can do a little bit of this or that, but it was very unsatisfying. So as a scientist and all of that training, I just took those skills and went to PubMed and started researching and coming up to speed with the actual research on autism. And it's so different than the information I was getting in the beginning.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And I think that's one of the biggest things for parents that are entering into the world of autism is that there's so much information, but then at the
Ugh,
same
yeah.
time, it feels like not all of it coincides. So how was that?
No, it is so complex. It is just like this, I don't know, big fuzzy whirlwind cloud type thing that you just get dropped into because there's all these abbreviations, right? It's like a whole nother language. I remember thinking, wait, ABA, OT, pizza. Like I didn't even know those abbreviations. So it took me time just to come up to speed with the language of autism and what it means. So yeah, there's conflicting advice, but in many ways it's conflicting because certain things work for some kids and they don't for others, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's like bad advice or bad information. So much about autism is understanding the specificities of your child and what actually benefits them, because this diagnosis is so complex and different for each person, right? There's three levels and diagnosis is made just on observation, right? So there's not really any granularity. And that's the important part of autism, is really being able to get to the science and then say, okay, does this apply for my child?
And and I've met people that are autistic and could not tell at all. I think one of the things that people really confused with autism is that it has to show in some way.
Right.
And as you have kind of learned yourself, what is one of the biggest misconceptions you've noticed that people have kind of correlated to autism?
My, there are so many. I wouldn't even know where to start. I mean, if you just look at the two ends of the spectrums, right? What is the biggest misconception with level 3? So level 3 is, profound autism. Someone who needs 24/7 support, probably will never live on their own if they stay at level 3. Most people assume that because they can't speak and they can't control their body, that they're not intelligent. And that's not the case whatsoever. So more and more research is showing that there's absolutely nothing wrong with their language comprehension. Part of their brain, it's the part of the brain that coordinates motor so that someone could speak, right? Speaking takes a lot of motor coordination. You have gross motor, you have fine motor, you have breathing, right? There's so much going on to speak. And I would say the biggest misconception for level 3 is that someone who's non-speaking, who can't control their body, is not intelligent. And that's, the science proves it. That is not the case whatsoever.
And as you guys, and so I know that your introduction was your daughter's diagnosis. I know many parents, as soon as they hear the diagnosis of autism, they start to feel overwhelmed.
Yes.
What is one thing, because obviously you guys were able to figure it out, or what is one thing that you can say to parents to encourage them?
Well, so let me premise this by saying I did not like figure this out. I did not have a good handle on, I don't know, my life, on everything when my daughter was diagnosed. So you're seeing me, this is like 12 years past that. So
That's well,
if you talked to me 12 years ago, I would literally look extremely different. So it is stressful, but the important part is to go through those emotions. So I certainly don't want anyone to look at me and be like, oh, she looks calm, she looks like she understands all the science, that's how I should be. It's your emotions. So however you feel is the right way to feel. So I felt, oh, depressed and sad and angry and frustrated. And there was a real grieving process for my daughter's childhood, what I thought her childhood would be and what I thought my parenting experience would be. So there definitely was a lot going on there. And it was, feel those emotions and then move through them. So, now what? What do I do? How do I help this situation?
yeah. And I think a lot of people don't give themselves that grace of feeling what's coming up and kind of trying to push it to the side. And I think that just makes it even worse, no?
Yes, it will. You can't. One of my favorite books is "The Body Keeps the Score," and it does. You can try and push that aside as much as you want, but it really impacts your ability to make decisions, your ability to analyze data, right? So if you're just like annoyed but trying to not be annoyed, you're still annoyed, right? Because you're thinking, "I'm not annoyed," and you are annoyed, right? So you can't make decisions from that really grounded place. And that's a really important aspect when you're trying to decipher all this information, because you have to say, what is relevant from my child, right? And does that apply to my child? So you have to be in a real grounded state of mind, which is difficult, right? So even if you get past those emotions of that initial diagnosis, like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be here. I don't want to have to deal with the school, and I don't want to have to deal with food issues, and maybe they're not sleeping, right? There are all these aspects of autism that are very difficult, but then you have to have that presence of like, okay, let me somehow get calm and figure out a path forward.
Yeah. And I love that you said that because I feel that the kids with autism definitely need their parents to be that support for them at some point. Once
Yeah,
we figure it out, once we get it, together on our end. And I kind of wanted to go back to the science because you said something
sure.
that I loved and kind of wanted for you to unpack for us. You've said that 37% of kids with autism eventually lose their diagnosis. I think
Correct.
that's a powerful statistic, but can you help us understand what that actually means?
Sure. So this was one of the first things that I came across when I was researching autism, 12 years ago. I noticed how there were a few publications every few years or so that showed an autism diagnosis wasn't lifelong. So there were kids who were diagnosed, and then several years later, they're in front of the same doctor, and there was no diagnosis of autism. And again, autism is diagnosed by observation. And so that was one of the first key pieces of information that I read where I thought, oh, okay, all right, let me understand this fully. Because if 5% can lose their diagnosis, that's something, right? That's something to shoot for. And so when my daughter was diagnosed 12 years ago, that number was about 10%. So it showed about 10% of kids with autism in a few years, they lose their diagnosis and they go on to live what was called then an optimal outcome. So that was the terminology that was used to describe people who don't retain their autism diagnosis. And now in 2023, that number is 37%. So that research was done in Massachusetts. It was several hundred kids, and they followed them over the years and saw that 37% of kids who were diagnosed with autism. In a few years, they didn't retain their diagnosis and they actually termed it something different. They call it non-persistent autism. So that is scientifically how you describe someone who loses their diagnosis.
Wow. And did they say in that study what was attributing to these kids? That
No,
oh,
so so the one interesting thing about that study showed that as the children got better, right, like healthier, more engaged in school, what the parents overall did was they scaled back therapies like ABA, which goes 100% counter to what we're told. Right.
right.
So we're told ABA 40 hours a week, that's the gold standard. That's what you have to do. And that's not in general what parents did in that study um, for those 37%. So it's very counter. So I'm hoping, because that's a significant number, 37%. I'm hoping more studies happen now that look at, different aspects for health, different root causes, things like leucovorin, right, which is so popular now after Trump and RFK have approved it for autism. So there's different aspects of health that when you really focus on make a huge difference in the child's lives and parents' lives too, the entire family. So hopefully there'll be more granular studies, but science moves slowly, so it takes time to go from okay, it's possible to now okay, how exactly are they doing that? And this kind of research takes decades, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I was gonna say that would be such crucial information for people that are currently going through having a child with autism like me like right now because it's so funny that you said that about ABA though because for whatever reason our ABA stopped so she hasn't been going to it so I'm like well,
Mm.
if 37% of the kids were experiencing it maybe this is a sign I don't know that's really that's kind of mind-boggling that it would be almost like the opposite.
So from my experience, right? So I've worked with many parents, and like you said, in 21 different countries. And what I've noticed is as you address different health issues, learning just becomes so much easier and natural. So then you don't have to have that. Let me break everything down into a tiny little step, and let me hammer it at you. Um, because not many people really enjoy that in intensity. And you want to preserve that child's love and curiosity for school and just for learning. So that's really why focusing on health and what you could do now, right? Like it's like sometimes it's a blessing when things happen. Like, okay, there's no ABA. What should I do? Okay, let me focus on health. Let me focus on some diet aspects. Let me understand the science about that. And that's what you could do. So no parent ever has to feel like, oh, I can't do anything because there always is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's kind of the angle we took. We started
Yeah.
kind of doing the things that
Yeah.
the ABA therapist was planning to do with her and kind of just creating our own kind of, structure or our system at home. But
Right, and connecting with your daughter, because I can also say, right, so I have a very unique experience in the sense that I've watched so many kids get better, and some of my favorite times in the process is when the parents come back and they say, "How did he know about this? How did he know about that?" Or, "Now he's talking about, a trip we went on, and I didn't think he was, paying attention whatsoever." So, just because someone can't speak doesn't mean they're not listening and learning. So that's the real I find it to be extremely fun when the children start engaging more and not having those limits due to health. And then the parents are like, whoa. So, like, whatever your program is at home, just know your daughter is learning and listening, even if she's not like looking or attending the way you would think, oh, if somebody's going to learn, they're going to sit here and sit still and look. Or if you're reading a book, many times we think, oh, our child has to like sit right next to us. I know for me, I was like, oh, I want like that little nuzzling experience, right? Like we're reading a book and all of that. But kids with autism can still benefit and enjoy that whole experience within their abilities. So definitely read and keep educating your daughter because she's definitely learning.
oh yeah, oh yeah, she shows great signs of listening. Um,
Awesome.
I love that she's really good at like if her siblings are doing something that they're not supposed to be doing and they're being sneaky about it, she'll
Uh,
watch and kind of like pay attention and then, look out and then find her way to me and be like, yeah, so Tina and Noah are not doing.
exactly.
I love it because it's one of those things where, they think she's not paying attention just because she's standing there, but she's very
She is
aware, very
paying attention, yep. So for
Mhm.
everything, for school, for math, for reading, for social studies, history, all of that stuff, she's gonna be learning even if it looks to other people that she's not. It's
Mhm.
so true.
I love that. How important do you think it is for parents to have a good mindset, or at least like a stable mindset when they're navigating autism and the shifts that may come with having a kid that has autism?
It's hugely important. So we've developed something called the Navigating Autism Matrix, and it has 7 categories as to, what needs to have a focus. And mindset is one of those categories because you're gonna have hard days. There's no getting around it. And in the beginning, like around the diagnosis, you're probably having more bad days than good days, right? So mindset is really the only thing that is gonna help you get to that other side of the balance and have more good days. So when you have like these little moments, like your daughter kind of telling on the other siblings, right? Like that's something to celebrate, believe it or not, right? Because it's like wow, she's understanding so much social context, and she's understanding language, and she also knows to come to me, and like I'm authority, like so there's so much to celebrate that can help with that mindset, and I'm just using that as an
Yeah,
example.
I love it.
Um, but yeah, so you need that mindset because there are gonna be bad days. Let's say you, um, make some type of diet change, right? Sometimes that doesn't go easily, right? Many times diet change doesn't go easily, right? But you have to have that fortitude. And that's why you really want to base your decisions in science. So you have more of a grounding, right? So if you take a lab test and let's say there's inflammation in the gut, right? then it's like, okay, yeah, let's stop giving foods that are inflammatory, and let's stop giving X, Y, and Z. On those tough days, it's like, "Oh, this is so difficult. Why am I doing this? I just wanna give up," right? Then you could think back to that lab report and be like, "Oh, yeah, that number is super high." It's like, whoop, off the chart there. So, yeah, this is why we're doing it. So it's that combination of using science, mindset, and, a little bit of grace for yourself.
Yeah. We all need grace in
Yes.
today's world. A little bit of grace goes a long way. When you
Definitely
think
with ourselves. We're so easy, I think, to give grace sometimes to other people more than we are with ourselves. Definitely, I know that was something I it took me probably like 5 years before I felt like, "Okay, I'm doing a good job as a parent." Because like, I just felt like I was failing left and right. My daughter wouldn't, smile at me or look at me. And, she's not a teenager, right? So it's like, how did this go wrong so fast? And yeah, having grace with oneself is definitely beneficial.
I feel that. It's tough having kids. It's
Oh my gosh. It's very tough. Very tough.
It's one of those things that I, because I've adopted my nieces and nephews, so I became a
Mhm.
parent overnight. So anytime that I meet moms that you know are doing it, I have to say like, kudos, you are the best. You guys are the superhumans of the world. Like it's
Thank you.
literally, yeah, it's literally one of the hardest jobs I've ever done in my life, and
Oh my goodness.
I have so
Yeah.
much more appreciation for my mom and all the moms around the world.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for what you guys do. You guys are literally our superheroes, so,
Oh my goodness, yeah, parenting is tough, and then parenting with autism is just, like, next level.
yeah, it's a lot to prepare for. But, that kinda prompts me into my next question. For families that feel like they're doing everything right, but aren't seeing results, what would you say to them?
I would say they're not doing everything right. Right? So, there's 2 things there. So, one could be that they're just grasping at something. So, like social media and TikTok and let's just give the Leucovorin example. So let's base it in science, right? So let's say, someone heard the conference from Trump and RFK, and then they're seeing on TikTok parents are using Leucovorin, and many oh, my kid's talking now, right? So if that parent is like, all right, I'm just gonna try it. I'm just gonna either get folinic acid or I'll somehow get a doctor to prescribe me Leucovorin. I'm just gonna try it. And then they give it, and then it's like, "Oh, this didn't work." Right? That's something that many parents say. It didn't work. It didn't work. But did it have a shot? No, it didn't have a shot because there was no strategy. So if a parent is thinking about Leucovorin and heard it, you get a blood test and you find out if your child has the antibodies in their brain. If they have antibodies in their brain, then the folate is being blocked, and that really impacts speech greatly. So then you take the time to get the prescription. You take the time to titrate up nice and slowly. Like there's a whole process. So if a parent isn't grounded in that, like what's the plan, then that's when it can so easily become, oh, that didn't work. I tried it. I've tried so many things, but it's tried, but mm, not really from a place of logic. So that is definitely something that can happen, and then also just not, doing things long enough. So things with autism a lot of times don't just change drastically overnight. The clinical trials on leucovorin were 3 months, right? So having that perspective of time is really important as well.
That's what I've noticed too, is that it takes a lot of, time to, or at least, like, the programs that we've always been in, they're always a little longer than shorter.
Yeah. Yep.
And I was like, "Oh, that's great," because I think it gives us opportunity to really see, like, the change over time versus something that's just really quick, like almost trying to fix it.
Right. Well, some health stuff, so like something like vitamin D, if a child is not getting vitamin D supplementation, again, do a blood test, right? Not anyone's favorite. I understand blood tests are not the easiest, but if you want to get very specific about health, you would need to do certain testing, and not every test is a blood test, but something like vitamin D, if a child's having trouble going to sleep at night, a lot of times it's from a vitamin D deficiency. So there are things that can really help support the body, and sometimes those are on the quicker side, but not always. So
Yeah,
we can't move at really fast pace, um, for many things.
yeah. Well, like you said earlier, you've worked with families in over 21 countries. What's the universal theme or emotions you've noticed across all of them?
Well, the human emotion is the same across everyone. Just grief and regret. Many times parents say, "Oh, I know that's what was like the start of the trouble," whether it was antibiotics or, a whole host of things. But blaming oneself, feeling guilty, all of the emotions that I experienced is common, definitely around the world. Um, and yeah, that is definitely a common emotion. But then people move out into more the anger part and say, "All right, now what am I gonna do?"
Oh,
So, it's fine to use that emotion.
yeah. And then I kind of wanted to ask you because you talked about the science of autism and the kind of staying grounded in that. Do you believe that there's a scientific study that's out there that's been done that's kind of, I know 37% was what was changing within the kids, but is there a scientific study that's going around that's stating like what's causing autism? Are there different reasons? Like, because I know a lot of people will ask, like, well, obviously we're talking about autism, um, but what's causing it? Do we know any, leading factors?
Sure, so I can answer that, 2 different ways.
Yeah.
So, there's not really publications that talk about autism causation. Usually there's a lot of discussion about correlation, right? So something like air pollution can increase. So air pollution at a particular level, even not super dangerous levels, but in the third trimester of pregnancy is associated with a 30% increase in risk for autism. So they're not going to say air pollution causes autism, but you can associate a certain risk increase for the same amount of air pollution exposure, but in children under the age of 2, that risk increases to 60%. So there are different aspects of life that are correlated with a higher risk of autism, but there's not necessarily a paper based upon several hundred kids and saying, okay, this is the cause. The issue is there are so many different contributing factors, right? And for some kids, it's not like one particular cause. It could be a combination of a few.
Mm. And I don't know why this is making me want to ask, but I'm asking more so because you have so much coming out now, and like I know that I had heard, and I don't even know if this is true. I had heard the president say that Tylenol was a big contributing factor. Would that be something that we would want to look into, or is that like a study that's been done? Because
So
I was like,
there's
wait,
studies. Yes, I know. So the Leucovorin and what he talked about there was great because there's clear cut, there's 5 clinical trials. It shows benefit, great benefit to those who are FRAP positive. So that's the antibodies in the brain. And the downside of giving someone vitamin B9, which is leucovorin, is very, very minimal, right? You have hyperactivity, some stomach upset, things like that. So the risk reward benefit there is definitely in the favor of um, taking action on it sooner than later. Typically, the next step after those clinical studies, the smaller clinical studies were done, is you would have several larger studies. So maybe of 1,000 patients in each one. So you might be talking about another 10 years before it became mainstream. Um, with Tylenol, the science isn't clear cut like that. It's been studied, but there's mixed results, and it's not as clear cut. However, the issues and the dialogue it brings up, I think, is really good. So the issue relating to autism and Tylenol is that if a pregnant mother takes it, it depletes her glutathione levels, and then her and the baby are more susceptible to toxicity. Right. So that's the whole scientific premise. So you're depleting glutathione levels in the body, and obviously that's not the ideal time to do that, right? When a mother is pregnant. Um, so what you can take away from that is that, okay, glutathione is important, right? We want to be healthy, right? So having the dialogue of doing different tests before a woman gets pregnant, having different plans for controlling a fever, right? Because allowing a high fever to go uncontrollable for several days is not ideal either. So you're kind of in this situation of, this is maybe a choice between 2 not too good situations. So to get out of that and avoid that is you would want the mom to be as healthy as possible in the beginning and to be mindful of glutathione levels.
I'm glad we're talking. I'm so glad you're here too, because it gives us so much more of an understanding versus just like a general statement. And I think that's where a lot of people are getting confused. And I think even myself, because when I heard that, I initially was like, wait, what? We're not supposed to, and there's, obviously when you explain it, it makes way more sense. And I think it'll help people understand.
Yeah. Just to have a strategy, right? So it's not as if you can never take Tylenol, but if you take Tylenol, know that glutathione levels are depleted, right? Same thing as like when a conventional medicine doctor gives you an antibiotic and they tell you, eat some yogurt, maybe take a probiotic, right? That's the whole reason why, because we know when you take an antibiotic, you're killing beneficial bacteria as well as whatever that pathogen was.
Right.
And so to counter that, right, the doctor doesn't say, "Oh, well, we're not going to give you antibiotics." No, he's a reasonable doctor will say, "You know what? Eat some fermented foods. Yogurt is what is standard recommended, and then probiotics." Right. So that's the kind of approach you want to have, so that you can keep the mom safe and the baby safe, but to have options as well.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Sure.
I would love to ask now, how do you envision the future of autism education and research evolving over the next decade?
I think research will continue and certainly increase. I would love to see more and more studies that explain what parents exactly did in that like 37%, right? That number will get bigger and bigger. What are parents specifically doing? I know the science. That's what I teach on my Navigating Autism platform. So we take parents through so that they can make sure they don't miss anything. But I would love to see larger studies so that this is brought into discussion in the mainstream. It would be great for when there was a diagnosis to also be like, okay, these are the things that we really need to check in health, or even before there's a diagnosis, right? Many times there's like an 8 month, year-long wait list to get a diagnosis. It would be great if, a general pediatrician would be able to be like, all right, you know what? Let's really look at health and look at these things that are important. I would love to see that as the next steps in autism research.
I did not realize it takes so long to get a diagnosis. Why do you think that is?
Because it's shortage of qualified, specialists. So pediatricians can't make a diagnosis like this because they don't have the training. So there's, a shortage of developmental pediatricians and neurologists that can actually make the diagnosis. So many times parents are on the wait list 8 months or longer.
Oh, that wow. I know that I have a few listeners that are adults that are autistic, um, and they struggle with maybe I shouldn't say that. What advice would you give to anyone that's an adult that's autistic that may be navigating life on their own and maybe looking for resources for help?
Sure, sure. I would start with health. So really being meticulous about their health, and exploring what health challenges they have. So a lot of times sleep is an issue, anxiety, OCD, constipation, all of those things that many people assume are just autism are not, right? So there certainly are aspects to health that contribute to that, and many times doctors say, "Oh, that's just autism," right? But it's not. So you just want to follow your intuition and say, "You know what? I deserve to be healthy. Just because I have an autism diagnosis doesn't mean I should also live with anxiety." Right? If anxiety isn't something they enjoy, then work with a doctor to resolve that. And all of this, like understanding the science, it's not about changing who the person is. So the way I spell autism is AWEtism. And the reason I did that was I really hated the word autism. It was there was so much just negative emotions around all of that. And then as I started working on the science and helping my daughter get healthier, I was just amazed that she must have been feeling so terrible. But then she's getting up and going to school and she's trying, like, she's putting in the effort. She's determined to really want to have fun in life. And that's when that shift came to being autism spelled AWE, because I was just in awe of just the beauty of who she was. So if an adult has autism, it doesn't necessarily mean if you're trying to resolve health issues that you're trying to change who you are at all. You're just trying to remove those barriers that are holding you back from even being more of who they are themselves.
Yeah. That was beautiful. Thank you. And I love that you did that.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
It
I love
has, oh my goodness, words, mindset, right? Mindset, we talked about that. I couldn't, I even hated saying the word autism. I used to say, "Oh, my daughter's on the spectrum," because I just wanted to avoid that word because it would just like, the energy of it would just hit me. And like I said in the beginning, you can't make good decisions if you're in that negative space.
yeah.
So I had to change it around in my head.
Change it around you did. I love you're doing so much for your daughter and all the families that you're helping. It's incredible. And I just commend you because I love that this podcast has brought so many people that are living in their purpose, but not just in their purpose, but impacting the world, and the work that you're doing. I'm just grateful that I'm able to share this message with you and to my audience. But
Yes, well, thank you for being interested and having this conversation with me so we can impact other people's lives.
yeah, absolutely. I do have a few more questions before I let
Sure.
you go. I did want to ask, what's one message you want every parent listening to know about autism, progress, and hope?
Progress is possible for sure. Ground everything in science that you do and always maintain the hope. And the hope gets a lot easier when you're based in logic. It just kind of feeds into each other.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, so much, so much for just inspiring us, for helping us understand a little bit more about autism, the real science behind it. But I'd love for you to, before you go, let us know where we can follow you, where we can support you, any links that you'd like us to leave. We're going to put in the show notes so anyone that's listening can go down below and go ahead and click your website or whatever it is. But if you could
Yeah.
do that now, that would
They
be
could
great.
become members to the Navigating Autism platform if they're interested in understanding the science step by step. The Navigating Autism platform is there to help educate the parents. We have board certified health coaches that really help with mindset and help guide through the material. We put parents in small group pods so that they have support. and they can order functional medicine tests straight through the platform. And the platform is $98, and we accept flexible spending. So I try and make this as accessible as possible to all parents.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we'll leave all of that in the show notes so
Yep,
that if anyone wants to
definitely.
check it out, they'll be more than welcome to. But
And they can check out my YouTube channel. I've had that channel for over 10 years now, believe it or
oh,
not.
nice. Yes. What's your YouTube channel?
It's Navigating Autism. Yep,
Awesome. Okay, perfect.
yep.
Okay, we'll make sure we'll put that there too, so that if anyone wants to follow your YouTube, they can do that as well.
Yes, there's lots of science. So how that YouTube channel started with, I would take one publication and then I would teach it, in 10 minutes or less, something like that,
Oh,
so parents could really understand the science.
that's amazing. Thank you so much for doing that. And thank you so much for helping navigate autism with parents all around the world. And I know the families that have been able to work with you personally have really benefited and truly in their lives and for their children. So thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you. I do enjoy it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, until next time, guys, we will see you on the next episode. And thank you again, Dr. Lyons, for being here. And we wish you the best.
Awesome, thank you.
Of course. Bye, guys.
Hey guys, it's Icarus here,
And Amelia.
and I'm here to tell you if you'd like to join our brand new adventure. Go to DevonTaylorAuthor.com to learn more.
And check out the cool items like the new bucket hat.
Yeah, and so much more. See you guys there.
So far.